In this video, we're going to talk about making char and char cloth, and we're going to test out a popular notion that you have to poke a hole in your tin before you can properly make char. Okay, well folks, welcome back to Survival on Purpose. Thanks for stopping by. My name is Brian, and today's video, like I said, is going to be a little bit about char material and making char material. And there's a very popular, I guess the prevailing wisdom is that you got to poke a hole in your char tin to allow the gases that are created during the charring process to escape. So I've got a couple of Altoids tins, new Altoids tins here. Actually got a big candy tin, which by the way, this candy rocks if you can get some of this. So just, and then I've got some denim pieces of blue jean. I'll explain why about that in a minute. And got a little stove here. And the reason I'm using the stove and the denim is to be as scientific as possible. You know, if you throw this stuff in the fire, there may be a difference in temperatures, there may be a difference in whatever, you know. And if you use char material, and by the way, let me back up for a second. Typically, I'm not going to use char cloth unless it's a last resort. I think you get a lot better results from like using punk wood, maybe some fungus, cattails, fluff, anything like that. More natural materials. I really like using those for char if I'm going to use char. It just seems to be easier and have a more mass to it, so you can actually have a larger spark and a larger ember. But I'm using this, I've cut these squares up. I have an old piece of blue jean, and I'm actually using these for control because that way there's no variation in the moisture content or anything. If you're using natural material, there may be variations in a lot of stuff, so you won't get a true accurate comparison. Because what I want to do is I want to poke a hole in one, and we're going to leave one without a hole, and we're going to put, you know, the same amount of these come from the same pair of blue jeans, so should be real similar in composition. I also want to talk about, if you see an Altoids tin, well, it's got hinges, okay? So I'm thinking these hinges may be enough of an opening to allow the gas to escape. You may not have to pop a hole if you're using an Altoids tin, which is probably one of the most popular things to make char in. In case you've never really dealt with char before, real briefly, what char is basically like you're making charcoal. You want to get whatever you put in here, you want to get it hot enough to almost combust, but by depriving it of oxygen, because as you may or may not know, for fire you got to have three things. You got to have fuel, you got to have heat, you got to have oxygen. So it's going to be the fuel. The heat's going to be supplied by the stove, but what we're going to do is we're going to deprive it of oxygen by keeping it in a container, and that's going to allow it to basically carbonize and turn into charcoal. And charcoal will catch a spark very easily, and just glow and not burst into flame. The prevailing wisdom again is when you do this, whatever's not left, it escapes as gas. So typically you want to poke a hole to allow the gas to escape. If you ever made this, you can actually see a little smoke coming out of the hole. So my thinking is, and I've not done this, so we're going to learn together here, is probably these little hinges are going to make enough of a gap. But we're going to do one with a hole, one without a hole, and then the other tin we've got right here, you can see there's no hinges here. It's just a pretty sealed tin. So we're going to try this one with no hole, and just to compare. It's not going to be a strict comparison because it's a larger container, but that's about as scientific as I can make it. And what I thought we'd do is we'll start with the one with a hole and see how long it takes to char the material, and then we'll use that for control and do the other ones the same length of time. Because I know this works. I've done it plenty of times, but I don't know about the no hole. So let me get this set up and switch the camera down here and we'll get started. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is to make a hole in this Altoids tin. And I'm just going to use the Gerber Bear Grylls survival knife. If you've seen my review of this, this is actually my go-to knife right now because I'm doing a long-term test to see if this thing is as big a piece of junk as everybody says it is. So far, I'll tell you, it's doing just fine. So we're going to continue to do that and just to see how well it works. Sometimes if you just try it in the corner, if you just pop down on it, you wind up with a dent. But this knife's sharp enough, so we get a little hole here. So we got a little hole. Not a big hole, just a tiny little hole right there. That should be enough to let the gas out. And Gerber knife is still fine, didn't break the tip, so it's not made out of, you know, really crappy steel or anything. Let's get started. We're going to put, I'm not sure how many of these pieces of denim I've got, but obviously they're not exactly equal size. I didn't weigh them or cut them on a ruler. I just kind of eyeball it, but we're going to get as close as we can, close enough for government work, as they used to say. So we're going to put 5 pieces of char cloth in there. Not sure how long it's going to take to char that. That's a pretty good bit of material actually, but we'll see. Close it up, get our stove over here. And again, I'm using the stove just so we can maintain a very equal kind of temperature, and we don't have to have any variables of the fire. All right, okay, we're gonna put it on right now and start the time. I want to point out here now, you can see flame gas coming out of the little hole. It's also coming out the back here where the hinges are, which is, I don't want to get my finger in, but you see my finger here and over here. So, and the paint, plus the paint's burning off a little bit, but it seems like those hinges are doing a pretty good job of venting the gas, so we'll find out on the next one. Okay, well I just stopped my, screwed up and stopped my timer, but it's been about 16 minutes. We're going to turn this off and remove this from the heat and let it cool off before we open it up. And we'll take a look at it in just a minute. Okay, this thing's cooled now. Let's take a look and see what we got. All right, so we've got some char here, and let's try it and see if it'll catch a spark before we go any further with this experiment. I don't have a piece of flint, I got a piece of quartz. That's what I could find around here. Not a lot of flint in Georgia. I'm gonna pull one of these out of here. I kind of like the denim because it's a little heavier. It's not as, maybe as fragile, but it still this looks like it's charred pretty well. So the experts tell you to do it like this. So you hold this on top and then strike, find a sharp edge and try to throw a spark up onto it. So let's turn it over where it's kind of not moving. Let's try that. If that doesn't work, I just try to put it down vertically. I'm doing this out of the camera range, so I'm sorry. Let's try it this way. Try it here. Try it the old school way. Okay, I got one on there, and let's see if you can see that. Yep, there you can see that for sure. So we know this works, and you can see the piece of denim has just got a little more heft to it, and so it's going to hold that spark a lot longer, hold that ember a lot longer. And so, piece of quartz. If you can't find any flint, find a piece of quartz. Works really well. Okay, so next we're going to try the Altoids tin without the hole in it. Okay, so we've got 5 pieces of denim. Put them in the box here. Go ahead and get this thing started. Okay, I'm just going to use a match this time because I've already put my ferro rod back up and I don't want to fool with it. All right, so you see there are no holes on top of this one. I think the hinges are going to function just as well though. So we'll set that on there. My battery's dead, but we're going to give it a about 15-16 minutes. You got to trust me on that. I'm going to pause this. I'm sure you don't want to watch 15 minutes of this. Okay, so as you can see, looks to me like the hinges are venting smoke and gas pretty well. It's coming out these hinge area here. I hope you can see that. Let's see if we can get a little close up on it. All right, I'll give it a few more minutes. Okay, so we've got the other Altoids tin off and set it to cool. Set about 15 minutes on there. I'm going to take this can now with no hinge, and we're going to put 5 pieces of denim inside here. Lay them flat like the other ones. Got a lot more air, I understand. Put it on there like so. Crank up the old stove. And we're going to put this on there for 15 minutes and see what happens. So there's no hole in this one. The lid fits reasonably tight. Let's see how it goes. Still kind of warm. We'll leave that one alone for a minute. Okay, so even though we got a reasonably tight fitting lid, it's we got smoke coming out all around the rim of the lid. Turn this off. It's been about 15 minutes. Okay, so while the last one's cooling off, we'll go ahead and open the one now. It's cooled off with no hole in it. As you can see, it was venting very well out the hinges. We'll take a look at this, and looks like it's carbonated to me. So let's see what we can get if we get a spark on it. I'm sure we will. It looks fine. So probably could have done less than 15 minutes, because when it quits smoking, typically that means it's done. But I was trying to be consistent, and I was actually shooting another video while that thing was burning, so not quite as easy to use this big piece of flint. There we go. We got one on there. It's not that hard. You got a big enough piece here. You can see. There you go. So worked very well on an Altoids tin with no hole. Last one to check will be this one when it cools off. Okay, so I'm gonna open this one up. It's just a little warm, but I think it's gonna be okay. I can get it open. So, and looky there, looks like char cloth to me. And again, this one had no holes in it, and you can see that it fits pretty tight. I mean, it's not watertight, obviously, but it fits pretty tight. And we'll try it and see how well this thing takes a spark, just to make sure we've got the same test for everything. There we go. Well, I thought we went. Let's try. I got on the edge. There we go. There you go. We got no hole. We got Altoids tin with just the hinges. And Altoids tin with the hole. You can see that all three work just fine. Okay, well, so I don't know how scientific that was. I tried to use the same size pieces and the same amount of pieces of denim, use the stove, keep all the factors as close and equal as possible. But you can see that the tin with no hole in it made char cloth just fine. And I guess as did the other two with a hole in it, and you know the Altoid tins with just a hinge for the opening. I guess my point is, I'm not trying to say I'm right, everybody's wrong, or to cause some big controversy. I just think it's important that you, as a lot of times people watch videos and read things and they just assume and take for granted that, you know, what they're hearing is the gospel. And I'd encourage you to try things for yourself. Now, there's a lot of people that have a lot more expertise than me that say you need to poke holes in the tin. So I'm not putting myself up and saying that they're wrong. I'm just saying check it out for yourself. Just use this, if nothing else, to encourage you to try stuff for yourself and check stuff out for yourself. You should be doing that anyway, because if you're dependent on the knowledge that you've learned from reading or watching a video to get you by when you need it, well, knowledge is not going to do it. It takes skill, and the skill comes from using these two things right here. You got to use this here, but you got to transfer that knowledge into real world skills, and that's going to be what you need to do if you really have to use this stuff. So as always, I hope this has been helpful. I appreciate your watching. Thanks for subscribing to the Survival on Purpose channel. Thanks for giving it a thumbs up if you like it. I'm not trying to make anybody mad. Please forgive me if I did. And you can please check out my Amazon store below. That supports this channel. And I really appreciate all your help. Once again, my name is Brian. You're watching Survival on Purpose. Remember, survival is not an accident, so be prepared. See you next time.